Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Storytelling English. I am very happy you are here with me today. Before we begin, I want you to imagine something. Imagine that you are walking through a busy city. Cars are moving everywhere. People are looking at their phones. Airplanes are crossing the sky above you. Now imagine someone tells you that one man dreamed of many of these ideas 500 years before they existed. Not 5 years, not 50 years, 500 years. Would you believe it? Most people would laugh. Most people would say it is impossible. But there was a man whose imagination seemed to live in the future. A man who looked at a bird and imagined a flying machine. A man who looked at the human body and saw mysteries waiting to be solved. A man whose ideas were so far ahead of his time that the world needed centuries to catch up. His name was Leonardo da Vinci. But this story does not begin with genius. It begins with a boy who spent much of his childhood alone. In the rolling hills of Italy, young Leonardo often wandered through forests and fields by himself. While other children played games, Leonardo watched clouds. While other children chased each other, he studied insects crawling across tree bark. He noticed details that nobody else cared about: the shape of a leaf, the pattern inside a flower, the way sunlight reflected on water. To many people, these things were ordinary. To Leonardo, they were clues. The world was a giant puzzle, and he wanted to understand every piece. His questions never seemed to end. Why do birds fly? Why does water move the way it does? Why do people smile? Why do stars shine? The adults around him rarely had answers. Sometimes they became annoyed. Sometimes they told him to stop asking so many questions. But Leonardo could not stop. Curiosity had become part of who he was. As he grew older, his notebooks became his closest companions. He carried them everywhere. If he saw something interesting, he drew it. If he thought of a question, he wrote it down. If an idea appeared in his mind, he captured it before it disappeared. Most people forget their thoughts. Leonardo collected his page after page, year after year. Soon his talent for drawing became impossible to ignore. His father recognized that the boy possessed a special gift. So he sent Leonardo to Florence. At that time, Florence was one of the most exciting places on earth. Artists, thinkers, architects, and inventors filled the city. New ideas seemed to appear every day. For a curious young man, it was paradise. There, Leonardo entered the workshop of Andrea del Verrocchio. The workshop was noisy and busy. Paint-covered tables. Metalworkers hammered pieces of bronze. Artists sketched designs for sculptures. Ideas flowed through the building like a river. Leonardo absorbed everything. He learned painting. He learned engineering. He learned mathematics. He learned how machines worked. And the more he learned, the more he realized how much he still did not know. Many people become confident after gaining knowledge. Leonardo became even more curious. One day, he might study the muscles of a horse. The next day, he might examine the movement of water. The day after that, he might investigate how light enters the human eye. His interests seemed endless. It was as if he wanted to understand every secret hidden inside creation itself. And without realizing it, the young apprentice was preparing for something extraordinary. The world still knew him as a talented artist. But soon, his imagination would begin producing ideas that no one had ever seen before. Ideas that would make future generations wonder whether Leonardo da Vinci was simply a man or a visitor from another time. Hello again, my friends. Welcome back. In the last part of our story, we left Leonardo da Vinci standing at the edge of greatness. The world knew him as a gifted artist, but the world had no idea what was happening inside his mind. Because while other artists were learning how to paint better pictures, Leonardo was trying to understand how the entire universe worked. And that made all the difference. As the years passed, Leonardo's reputation continued to grow. Powerful leaders wanted his services. Rich families wanted his paintings. Important rulers wanted his ideas. Eventually, he moved to the great city of Milan. It was there that one of the most fascinating chapters of his life began. Most artists arrived before kings and dukes carrying paintings. Leonardo arrived carrying dreams. He spoke about bridges that could be built quickly. He described machines that could move armies. He explained ideas for canals, buildings, and inventions. He was not asking people to admire what he had already done. He was asking them to imagine what had never been done before. And somehow, people believed him. Perhaps it was because Leonardo himself believed so strongly in possibility. He never accepted limits, simply because everyone else accepted them. If people said something could not be done, he became even more interested. His notebooks grew thicker. Every page revealed a mind constantly at work. Some sketches looked like birds. Some looked like machines. Some looked like strange devices that nobody could understand. But Leonardo understood, at least in his imagination. One of his most famous ideas was a flying machine inspired by the movement of birds. For years he studied wings. He observed how birds changed direction. He watched how they used air currents. While others admired birds for their beauty, Leonardo studied them as teachers. He believed nature already knew the answers. Human beings simply had to learn from it. This belief guided his entire life. Nature became his greatest classroom. Then came one of the masterpieces that would make his name immortal, a painting known as The Last Supper. But Leonardo was not interested in creating perfect faces alone. He wanted to capture emotions: fear, shock, confusion, sadness, hope. He wanted viewers to feel as though they had entered the room at the exact moment everything changed. When people looked at the painting, they did not see figures frozen in time. They saw human beings, real people experiencing a powerful moment. And that was Leonardo's gift. He could make stone feel alive. He could make paint feel human. Yet even while creating masterpieces, his curiosity never rested. He secretly studied human anatomy. Night after night, he examined muscles, bones, and organs. He wanted to understand how the body truly worked, not because anyone asked him to, not because he would become famous, but because he genuinely wanted to know. That simple desire to understand pushed him farther than most people ever go. Then, sometime around the beginning of the 16th century, Leonardo began working on a portrait. At first, it seemed like an ordinary commission, a woman sitting quietly, a simple background, nothing unusual. But Leonardo approached it differently. He spent years refining tiny details: the corners of the mouth, the softness of the eyes, the way light touched the skin. Little by little, the painting became something extraordinary. Today, we know it as the Mona Lisa. Hundreds of years later, people still travel across the world to stand before that mysterious smile. Some believe she looks happy, others think she looks sad. Many cannot decide, and perhaps that is exactly why the painting remains unforgettable. It continues asking questions long after the artist is gone. As Leonardo entered old age, his body began to weaken, but his mind remained as active as ever. He continued drawing, he continued writing, he continued asking questions. Finally, the King of France invited him to live near the royal court. There, Leonardo spent his final years surrounded by respect and admiration. The curious boy from the hills of Vinci had become one of the most celebrated minds in Europe. Yet what makes Leonardo truly remarkable is not the paintings. It is not the inventions. It is not even the notebooks. It is the way he lived. He never stopped learning. He never stopped wondering. He never reached a point where he believed he knew enough. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson he left behind. Many people grow older. Few people remain curious. Leonardo remained curious until his final days. On May 2nd, 1519, Leonardo da Vinci passed away. But in a very real sense, He never disappeared. His ideas survived. His art survived. His questions survived. And even now, more than 500 years later, his curiosity continues inspiring millions of people around the world. So, my friend, as our story gently comes to an end, I want to leave you with one thought. You do not need to be the smartest person in the room. You do not need to come from a wealthy family. You do not need perfect opportunities. What you need is curiosity, the courage to ask one more question, the patience to learn one more thing, the willingness to look at the world and wonder why. Because every great discovery begins with a question, and every remarkable journey begins with curiosity. Leonardo da Vinci understood that truth. Perhaps now you do too. Thank you for spending this time with me today. This is Storytelling English, and until our paths cross again, keep learning, keep exploring, and never stop asking questions.